Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome in on another episode of The Penalty. I'm, of course, your host, Trevor Cherney. Thank you so much for joining the show once again. It is Wednesday, so happy Wednesday to all you guys around. My apologies for not getting a show out earlier in the week. I wasn't really feeling the hottest to record a pod, even just a quick one. Unfortunately, there was a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, it was the end of the college football playoffs. Obviously, Thanksgiving game happened, so, and it was the end of, like I said, it was the end of college football season. There was a lot of changes going on. But now we're finally here to discuss all of that, and finally, anyways, like I said, we'll get a little bit of we'll get the Lions first, obviously, and their loss on Thanksgiving to the Packers, and then we'll get into Michigan, Ohio State, that game, Ohio State dominating Michigan really from start to finish. I know Michigan had a slight chance there in the beginning, but clearly, field goals we're not going to do this year. And then finally, we'll talk about the Michigan State, their new head coach, since Johnathan Smith finally has been fired. So thank you. Just couldn't be happy. Couldn't be happier that he's gone now. Anyways, so let's get into the show. So Lions lost to the Packers on Thanksgiving. The Packers now sweep the Lions for the season. And here's the thing about this game, right? Clearly, Green Bay dominated the line of scrimmage. And look, it's been apparent all season long for the Lions. They haven't quite dominated the line of scrimmage like they were last year and the year prior. And that's just thanks to their offensive line, which isn't as good as it was last year. And just quite frankly, it's not good enough. And that defensive line has been, quite frankly, it has been not very good. Tell you the truth, even with Hutchinson in there, Hutch has been extremely disappointing for about the last month or so. Which is weird, but it is what it is. All players go through slumps and whatnot, so but he's got to play better. But the entire defensive line has to play better, though. In general. So it's not just Hutchinson, but everyone does. But see, that's the problem, though, is that there really isn't anybody else. I mean, Marcus Davenport is barely healthy. Josh Pascal is not come back this year. Alquindin Muhammad, or whatever his name is, has been nothing for the past 2 months. Ali McNeil has been underwhelming. And Hutchinson, it just hasn't really performed to his standards, I would say. And it's been apparent all season long, but especially the last month or so. And again, look, it's just the both lines for the Lions are just not good enough to win a Super Bowl at this current moment in time. It's just not. And you saw Green Bay basically have their way on the line of scrimmage, and that's basically that's why they lost. They couldn't get any pressure on Love. Love had basically all day to throw. That's what it felt like. That's what it felt like. And it's a mess. But both lines are a mess right now, and they're not good enough to win a Super Bowl at this current point in time. And here's the thing too. If the Lions lose to the Cowboys on Thursday night, I'm officially out on this team. Like, I already basically, them being 7-5, I already have 1 foot out the door, basically. Because, and if they lose to the Cowboys on Thursday, I'm out. Both my feet are out. My whole body's out the door. I'm out. I'll see you next season. That's what it could. That's what it could. This game against the Cowboys could be the Lions' season. Because look, if they win, they still have over 50% shot to make the playoffs. If they lose, they drop all the way down to 20%. So think about that. You go to over 50 if you win, but then you drop all the way down to 20% if you lose. So that's why, look, this is a must-win game for the Lions. And I didn't expect the Cowboys game to be this way, but that's just how it is. So, and they're a tough team, you know. They're especially offensively. They're not an easy team, certainly. Yeah, they're not great, but they're not terrible like they were. You know, they can at least play offense somewhat. Dak Prescott, you know, they got Dak, CeeDee Lamb is in there. They got Javonte Williams has been huge for them. George Pickens has been a huge pickup. Quinn Williams has made a huge difference in that defensive line. Say, why didn't we add anybody to our defensive line to the trade deadline, huh? Like, why? We're just good? Like, we got Hutchinson. We're good. That's fine. So, yeah, like I said, if they lose Thursday, that's probably the season right there. And I would hate to say it, but yeah, I mean, because I don't see them winning against the Rams. They could lose to the Steelers. They could lose to the Vikings. They could lose any of these teams down the stretch. Even the Bears, who now you have to take seriously because they have the number 1 seed, and they just not only beat the Eagles, they dominated the Eagles' line of scrimmage. So, yeah, we have to take the Bears seriously, which I hate because I hate the Bears. I despise the Bears. They're my least favorite team in the whole NFL. I hate the Bears. Hate them. And the fact that they have the number 1 seed right now, they look like a better team than us all around, including the line of scrimmage, is just so disencouraging. So, and yeah, like I said, look, if the Lions want to keep their fans around, right? Fans like me, who already have one foot out the door, win Thursday, okay? Win Thursday, just at all costs, win Thursday, or else it is over. Alrighty, so that's Lions. Let's get into Michigan's loss to Ohio State. So, you know, all week around, I kept hearing from Michigan fans saying, "Oh, Ohio State, that's such an easy game, and this and that, and oh, this is gonna be such an easy win. We're gonna cruise right into the playoffs, this and that." And then, wouldn't you know, they got, not only did they lose, but basically they got dominated. Let's be honest here. This was not remotely close. And honestly, if Ohio State really wanted to, they could have put pedal to the metal in the fourth quarter, but they decided not to. So, but they really could have. If they really wanted to, they probably could have scored 40 or 50 on them if they really wanted to. Here's the problem for Michigan all season long, and here's why I have Michigan and why I never took them seriously. Every team they faced that had a pulse, okay, that being Oklahoma, USC, and now Ohio State, the 3 big teams they faced, not only did they lose to all 3, but they largely looked like the lesser team out there, always. On offense, on defense, they didn't look like they belong there, honestly. For all 3 games, like it just, I don't know. It's just like, to me, that's a coaching problem. That's a Sharon Moore problem. And honestly, if I were Michigan, I would fire Sharon Moore. Yeah, he can recruit, but besides the Ohio State game last year, okay, which yes was a big win, and besides the Alabama win last year too, okay, besides those two wins, what has Sharon done in his time as Michigan head coach to prove, oh hey, he's the right guy for the job? I'm going to tell you, he really hasn't. His teams have looked sloppy at times. His quarterback just hasn't developed at all this year. Just didn't develop at all this year. Like, I'm not sure if Bryce made any huge strides from week 1 to currently. I don't think he did. Tell you the truth, I didn't see it out of the field. Right? I mean, there were a few times on Saturday where you had guys wide open and Bryce just didn't see. And here's my problem with Bryce. With how talented he is, and yes, he's very talented, obviously. There's no question about that. He was the number 1 quarterback in the country for a reason. I get it, okay? And he's very talented, and he's very athletic. But just because you're talented and athletic doesn't make you a great quarterback, okay? And somebody like Bryce, who is still very raw and still has a lot of things to work out, which is fine. He's only 18 years old, I mean, obviously. So I'm not going to bash a kid. Again, he's only going to be 18. And hell, even next year when the season starts, he's only going to be 19. So, again, he's still a kid, right? And he's still going to be a kid next year. He's still going to find time to grow and whatnot. So, but I just objectively, I don't know if Michigan is the right place for him, for his development, right? Because look, Michigan, they have never been known to develop quarterbacks, right? What was the last great quarterback they developed? Tom Brady went to Michigan. Yeah, but he wasn't even the full-time starter, though, at his time in Michigan. Either one week he was starring or the other week he was holding the clipboard for the other quarterback. That's Tom Brady in Michigan. Congrats. Oh, what about J.J. McCarthy? J.J. McCarthy is awful in the NFL. You call that development? He looks terrible. So, again, if I were Bryce, I would have a sit down with my family, and I would be like, look, obviously it's really cool to play for my hometown college team and whatnot, but ultimately, is this truly is the best place for me as a player, for a quarterback to develop into becoming, possibly Josh Allen, right? Or if you want to say Cam Newton, you can say Cam Newton as well. Just super freaks who are giftedly, talented and athletic, but guys who still need to develop and guys who still need to become, first and foremost, still become quarterbacks, right? And play quarterback. So, and read defenses, process information, right? Like, there's more to being a quarterback than just running the ball over the place or just keeping the ball or this and that that there is, So, again, I don't hate Bryce. I hope he works out. But I'm not sure. But I'm just not sure if he's going to work out at Michigan. And he might. We might see a completely different Bryce Underwood next year. And if that happens, good for him. But if it doesn't, look, then he probably just should have stayed with LSU, honestly. Because at least LSU can develop quarterbacks, right? Yes, I know Brian Kelly is a scumbag, but Brian Kelly isn't there anymore. So, and honestly, look, again, if he did transfer, I wouldn't blame him. I really wouldn't. And why would you? So do I think he's going to transfer this year? Probably not. But next year, if things are still not getting better, if he still hasn't really developed as a quarterback, then yeah, I do see him transferring after next year, which will probably be the best thing for him at that point. So, but again, we'll find out and see. But just overall though, for Michigan, look, your season's over. You didn't really play anybody, and even the bad teams you did, you almost lost to. You almost lost to Northwestern. You almost lost to Purdue. And quite honestly, you probably should have lost those teams. So I don't know how you come out of this season with a lot of positives. Especially with the schedule they had. They should at least had, if they were a real serious team, a real contender, they would have lost like one or two of those games, and not all three of those big games. So, but again, it's just Michigan right now. I just don't know if they're serious about truly, being world beaters and being champions right now. At least not with Sharon Moore as their head coach. Who again I don't hate, but I don't think Sharon Moore is somebody who belongs at such a brand school and such a big school like Michigan, right? And maybe he's better off coaching somewhere else like Virginia Tech, or South Florida, or any of those schools. Honestly, I know the schools. I know James Franklin has been. I know James Franklin's at Virginia Tech now, but I'm just saying, like, it would have been better for him to go to a smaller school than to make this big leap jump into coaching such a big brand like Michigan. Because yeah, it can be daunting. It can be, So, again, Michigan. Look, disappointing season, I would say. I know they're still young. I know they're the youngest team in college football, but also too, that's on your coach. Because I don't know if Michigan, if they should ever be the youngest team in the Big Ten or the college football, right? So, and look, for Ohio State, they just dominated. And they might go back to back this year. They're really good. And Julian Sayin is still my favorite quarterback in college football right now. He's done things the right way. He looks really good. And the thing about Sayin is, you see him getting better each and every week, right? If you watch him play since week 1, you would know that Julian Sayin is somebody who has gotten only marginally, he's gotten so much better, and he's gotten so much more comfortable with his role. Again, it's incredible. So, but yeah, so that's Michigan, Ohio State. So finally, let's get to Michigan State over the weekend, firing Johnathan Smith after a lousy season. Only winning 4 games this year and only winning 1 Big Ten game this year, which is just absolutely nuts. And then they hire Pat Fitzgerald. So obviously, look, Michigan made the right move. Michigan State made the right move. They should have fired Johnathan Smith. Clearly, things were not going well. Clearly, this needed to happen because there was just no progress being made. And when there's no progress being made, it's like, well, what's the point, So, and now they hire Pat Fitzgerald, who is the former head coach of Northwestern. I mean, look, obviously, I don't think Northwestern is some great football school and whatnot, but one thing I will say is Pat Fitzgerald tried his best to make Northwestern as competitive and as to be in it, as much as possible, to be in the conversation of, oh, hey, well, maybe they could, win the Big Ten West. Maybe they could, um, do some truly incredible things. So, and look, I've always liked Pat Fitzgerald. I think, he's always been a good look. There's no doubt the guy is a good recruiter. The guy can recruit. He can bring in, anybody he wants to. He's a good speaker. So, yes, he can actually speak in full sentences, unlike Johnathan Smith and unlike Mel Tucker. So that's nice. Look, he understands the Big Ten. He understands the Midwest. It's a good fit, so he knows the area. Now, look, I'm not expecting Michigan State to automatically be, national title contenders next year. That's unrealistic, right? They got a lot of work to do. But could I see them being contenders in the playoffs in the next 2-3 years? Possibly 4? Maybe. I mean, anything's possible, right? So I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't say, oh, well, it's impossible, because it's not. But that's as long as Michigan State is serious about football and serious about winning and serious about NIL. If they're not, then it won't matter. But if they are, which they said that it does matter, and what I do like is it seems that the AD, the president, and Fitzgerald all have the same mindset of, we want to make Michigan State football into a winning program again. That they were standards years ago, but those standards have sort of faded away, right? All we want to do is bring those standards back to Michigan State, which I think is very, is great. So I think it's great that they all have alignment with one another on that. And look, I hope for the best for this program and for Fitz. I'm gonna be curious to see what his staff looks like. That's gonna be huge. And so yeah. But I like the hire so far. No, again, we'll see how things turn out and whatnot. We'll have a wait and see approach to it. But so far I like the hire. It's a good fit. And again, look, it's a risky move, right? Because he's been out of football now for a couple of years. His last few seasons in Northwestern weren't really all that great, at all. But hopefully there's a spark there. There is something there where, there needs to be, a fire under Fitzgerald for this team to truly succeed and truly compete, not only with the Big Ten but nationally as well. Anyways, that's it for today, guys. I appreciate it. I'll try to get a show out on Friday. And if not Friday, then obviously I'll have a show out Monday. So, but I'll try to have a show on Friday after the Lions game, which I will be at that game as well. So we'll see how that goes. It's supposed to be a whiteout, which is cool. So, but yeah, anyways, I will see you guys on the next one.